See you there. In light of COVID-19's pandemic that hit the world, it is very easy to feel anxious and feel like everything is crumbling. Many people around the world are wondering, what is the new norm? What is the thing to do? It's easy to feel anxious, but miss out opportunities of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. It requires for us to create an environment where people are resilient. We hear the terms the new norm, yet the new norm is in fact the norm. What we call the new norm is due to the acceleration of change around the world. But let me ask you a question. Is a change the norm? Aren't things always changing? Is change not constant? Those are many questions that I believe we need to ask ourselves as we navigate through COVID-19 pandemic. Now is the time for leaders to create a space in which we can fail, learn from failure, but at the same time grow together. Would you believe that even in the midst of COVID-19, there are new opportunities which are springing up? Opportunities that may be disguised as oppositions, but out of the oppositions, it's time for us leaders, it's time for us people in our community and the communities around.
I'm comfortable to start, so phones on silence, for those who don't have your phones on silence or around. Okay, so the background knows you're okay. We can close the doors. Esau. Hari intebe na hano if you wish to sit, perhaps. Yeah. So, will I be able to remove when I speak?
No, I think it's better to keep it.
Yeah.
In light of COVID-19's pandemic that hit the world, it is very easy to feel anxious and feel like everything is crumbling. Many people around the world are wondering, what is the new norm? What is the thing to do? It's easy to feel anxious, but miss out opportunities of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. It requires for us to create an environment where people are resilient. We hear the terms the new norm, yet
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first Leaders Roundtable organized by Kora Coaching Group together with Igihe TV. Welcome. Today is quite an amazing day for us to be able to come to your houses, wherever you are, or to come to your offices, wherever you are in the world. We are broadcasting from Kigali, Rwanda, and it is my pleasure to welcome you as your host. My name is Mireille Ineza Carrera, and I'm the CEO of Kora Coaching Group. Today's Leadership Roundtable is with exciting panelists that will be talking about a specific topic that is very much key for where we are today. particularly when it comes to managing COVID-19 pandemics and aftermaths. Allow me to first introduce my panelists, and I will come back to you to share more about how the program is going to be and also how you can participate interactively as we go along. So to my left, I have Mr. Ignace Rusenga-Bachaha, the director at Mara Group. Ignace is a seasoned leader in Rwanda and in East Africa, formerly head of the IFC, International Finance Group, part of World Bank, and now with Mara Group. Mr. Ignace Rusenga-Bachaha, welcome to the roundtable.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. And immediately to Ignace's left, we have His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Ron Adam, Ambassador of Israel to Rwanda, and he happens to be our neighbor also in Kigali. So, sir, it's a pleasure to welcome you here.
Thank you.
Excellent. And immediately to his left, we have Clarisse Iribagiza, who is the CEO of DMM Hehe. Clarisse, it's a pleasure to have you here today. You're welcome. And last but not least, Clément Uwajeneza, who is the chairman at PSF and the ICT Chamber. Clément is also CTO at Benefactors Ltd in Kigali, Rwanda. Clément, a pleasure to have you.
A pleasure to be here.
Likewise. So, as you can see, we are all wearing masks and also abiding to the current governmental rules to keep distance between speakers of at least 1 meter. So as much as it is uncomfortable for us to be able to see, or for you to see how our expressions are, that is something that is also going to resonate with the topic today. I hear there is a sound issue. So we will address the sound issue very shortly. In as much as the world currently is facing a number of crises, a number of uncertainties, we thought that it would be a good thing to gather a panel of experts in the area of entrepreneurship, in areas of funding businesses, startups specifically, but also businesses that have been around for a while. So as much as today we are not able to truly interact in a proper way, it is a reflection of where many people viewing us today from around the world may be in. So today's talk is themed as lessons learned from failure. That's one of the elements that we are going to address. And the second part is having failure is a success factor of innovation. So the key word is innovation, and the key word really is about how to manage failure. That is the main thing we are going to address, how to manage it from a point of emotional intelligence, but also really with the intention to help you viewers to know how to rise up if you have failed in anything, or feel that you have failed, or if you know someone that may have gone through challenges in their businesses in the startup phase or otherwise. So I am going to invite you to interact with us over Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Send us comments, questions. We will be looking at those and addressing them as we go. So that's pretty much the flow of today's program, which is of 1 hour. We will finish at 3 p.m. Kigali time. Now, let me come back to my very esteemed guests and share with you why we chose this topic today. It's an interesting story because and I hope that you will also be inspired to think about how you can co-create something when you are interacting with other leaders. I know that there are many leaders following us, many entrepreneurs, but also those who are aspiring to become leaders. A few weeks ago, my team and I were in a meeting with our neighbor at the Embassy of Israel, and we were discussing a number of things. And one of the things that came up was the area of innovation. Now, we know the statistics around the world, and I know Mr. Inyas Rusenga from the World Bank's point of view will share the numbers behind this. We know that statistics talk about 80% of businesses failing in the first 2 years of existence. So we were talking about this with the ambassador, and it was quite amazing to hear Israel's perspective as to how they deal with innovation. So one thing led to another, and this is what happened. When leaders get around the table, they create and they co-create. So the basis of our discussion is really an article that was published earlier in March that talks about how failure can be an opportunity for people to learn and grow from it and also do something differently. I understand that Israel is one of the leaders in the area of innovation, and Israel has got an incredible approach as to how they spur innovation, but also keeping in mind that the number of people who are venturing into entrepreneurship may not necessarily thrive. So with that said, with that intro, I would like for you, Ambassador Dr. Ron, to please share a little bit more about the article that was published in the New Times earlier this year, and share more about Israel's approach to innovation. Could you share more about that? Yes, you can take off your mask.
Just a bit. Thank you. Ray, thank you very much. First of all, congratulations for this start of a new roundtable together with EGA. It's very good. Congratulations for the initiative and also for the nice video you prepared for this meeting. I was very much impressed. And I'm happy to have you as a neighbor because when we first met, I thought I was very happy that we have such a coaching group in Rwanda. And I thought this is what is needed here to empower young people and to leadership, to management, to coaching managers, and we have these coaching firms, hundreds of them, and every manager has a coach in Israel, even small and big and medium size. So I think not only it's not a shame to have a manager, to have a coach, but it's a must, and it's very helpful. Also in the foreign ministry. I mean, there is a program, an annual program of coaches that follow and sit with the manager for 3 months or 6 months,
Right.
however time he needs. So I really congratulate, and there are not too many firms like yours, and there should be. And I really call the public sector to engage with you and to have your services.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about this interview that I had, and this interview I had in March, and the idea was really to air how we approach innovation, and especially to touch one idea which I think should be discussed here more, and this is the issue of failing. And then I was happy, and I will talk about it. But then I was happy that the editorial of the next following day, I mean, spoke about it. Israel Rwanda denominator, the Odyssey, to try and not to fear to fail, not fear to fail. And this is and if I'm the one to bring the message, then be it. The idea is really to change the state of mind of young people, because they graduate from schools. In schools, they somehow learn not to ask questions, not to fail. And in Israel, we started already in kindergarten and in primary, and of course in secondary. You can ask everything you need. There will be no punishment. You can fail, and you will learn from your failure, and then fail again. And then whenever it comes the time that you mature into the good idea and to success, then it's fine. And if I jump directly to our Innovation Authority, the Innovation Authority supports you with tens of thousands of dollars as an entrepreneur, without asking questions, without the need to come back to the Innovation Authority. It's unconditional support of money to try, and of course you should fail. Of course, it's part of the process. It cannot be different. It cannot be in another way, because most of the initiatives fail, most of the innovation. And then 90%, 80%, but then you learn, and then you become better. And they do it unconditionally. Also budget-wise. Maybe we talk about the budget later on, but it's also important. How to avoid the result-based budgeting. And I can explain it. It's a contradiction to innovation. And that is how the budget here is made. I mean, you see today we have the budget week, and okay, let's talk about it for a minute. It's every budget here is, and not only here, in other countries, it's not unique. You need to set your targets, your goals, you need to set expected accomplishments, and you need to set the indicator of achievement. How will you measure your accomplishments? This is how it is here. If it's in Mugdugu level, if it's the sector level, if it's the province level, if it's the national level. And that is very organized. I have no criticism about that. But as I see it, it's contradict innovation. Because if you give the money and you expect to return, you expect full compliance, full, reporting about what you did. But if you fail, so you are busted. So you need to give unconditional money for innovation. You do conditional money, budget, result-based, to other things. If you need to build a building, of course, you cannot hide the money. If you build a hospital, if you need a clinic, or a road, of course you need not to fail when you build the road. It's not a big deal. You need to put the right levels and to put the asphalt, and you do a company which you can... But if you want to innovate, it's something else. That's what I think. Now, in addition to that, I speak about about to dare. You need to dare. You need to dare, and you need to fail. If you fail, it's fine. You need to dare, you need to think outside the box, you need to dream big, of course. And this I don't have to tell you because your president dreams big. I like also to be the first. In all my career, I was the first to doing this and that and that. I was the first chairman in the UN for Israel. I was the first ambassador to Rwanda. I was the first man who did a special envoy on energy in the Israeli Foreign Ministry. I started new things, and that is how
That's a pattern.
I innovate myself.
You reinvent yourself.
Reinventing myself.
That's right.
And to reinvent someone is a daily thing. You wake up and you think, what should I can invent today? And so to invent, and everything, we speak about chutzpah. Chutzpah is the English word for a cheeky odyssey, audacity. Sorry.
Audacity, yes.
Audacity. So you need to dare. In other words, to dare, and even if it doesn't work, you go for it. So I want to say, however, Rwanda is the place to start new things. Rwanda is a place to bring innovation, to innovate, and to do a proof of concept of a product. We can discuss it, what I'm planning in the embassy, but this is the place. So just do the following. Just let people do, let people fail, don't ask for accomplishment immediately, and then you're perfect.
Wow.
That's what I do.
That's amazing. It's quite a riveting way of seeing things, and I know that Ignace is dying to say something, but allow me to just comment on what Ambassador Dr. Ron has just shared. I see there is a pattern in reinventing yourself and doing things first, for the first time, doing new. And here is one more thing, Dr. Ron. You are the first guests for the first Leaders Roundtable from our organization. So that concept is certainly proved to be true in your life. So thank you. I just wanted to throw that in there. But what I hear, which I'm sure is going to be an area of debate, specifically with the financiers on my left and also those who are in innovation, particularly in the ICT sector. What Ambassador said about unconditional funding as if there was, money was not a problem, but really you allow people to dream, to be fully themselves and innovate and create is, I believe, what the concept is that Israel has adopted. But the chutzpah, I love that word, chutzpah. I think in Kinyarwanda we have something similar, which is inhotanyi, which means someone who's brave, who's courageous. Yes, I heard one expert who was actually writing an article about chutzpah and how it means inhotanyi in Kinyarwanda. And that has a great meaning to us Rwandans, of course. I'm dying to hear your opinion, Mr. Financier. What are your thoughts about, not having a budget-based approach, but really thinking about innovation rather than the return on the investments? What are your thoughts, Mr. Rusenga?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mihai. Two things. One, it was extremely interesting to hear from the ambassador of Israel, both when he described the framework of that they use in Israel, which is somehow unique. I guess the second one after Israel in the world is Singapore, where this has been institutionalized to the extent that you can have budget allocated without targets. For financier, it's a kind of a disaster. But you are right in one thing, innovation doesn't have a schedule. And I'm sure my colleague at the left will talk more about this. You come up with the innovation at a moment where you yourself, as an innovator, you don't expect this to come. So it makes sense in the budgeting without target from the
budgeting.
Yeah, and conditional from a policy perspective. From a financier, we'll come back to this. Second thing on the pattern for the ambassador. You have been the first to thank Kora and Igihe, and you did it so well that I don't need to do this. Now, how do we approach this on the financial side? Let me first put two indicators that allow us to understand the theme of the day. Failure, from the World Bank Group perspective, is not 80%. 80% is in a country like Israel and Singapore, where you have already a framework.
Right.
But globally, we have an average of 90% of failure.
Oh, wow. It's even higher.
Which means if you have 1,000 startup SME entrepreneur, you would have 900 failure, you would have 100 that will survive.
Wow.
And open the business. This is not enough because of this 100 entrepreneur SME, you would have 20% that will succeed. So if you sum up, you have 2% of this sample of
Wow.
1,000, so 20 cases succeeding out of 1,000.
That's very little.
Yeah, so that's very little. Now, another indicator is if you fail, can you come back? Can you bounce back? Few statistics say in Israel you can bounce back after 4 to 5 times because the framework allows it. And this is the beauty of having a budget without
conditions.
In US, we talk about 3.5 times you can bounce back. In South Africa, we talk about 2 times. Now, when you come to Africa, if you make it 1 time and you come back, it's already a performance. Because
wow, it's quite an eye-opening, isn't it?
Because the reaction of an entrepreneur when he fails is, I tried it, I did not make it, let me go back to Irembo and ask for a job.
Yes, or anywhere else.
Yeah.
Or at the bank.
So, or at the bank, yeah. So, second thing I wanted to discuss is failure happen at different stage. When we talk about failure, we have failure for startup, which happen 3, 4, 6 months after starting. But you have also, in some case, failure that happen in the middle when you have started a trend of success, and then all of a sudden something happened and you fail. Now, how we encourage our youth to have this culture of trying to bounce back with or without the unconditional budgeting. I think one thing that can help is where we are today, coaching. When you fail in the African mindset, you fail, it is a disaster.
Yeah, it's a stigma that is attached to you.
It's a stigma that you will carry on all your
For
life.
your whole life,
in the family, around you, in the community. So one thing we need to do is rather change the mindset and consider not only the failure, but consider the power of the failure to success. And the word is not from me, the word is from a good entrepreneur called Alon Reyes. I don't know if you know him, I brought him in Rwanda. This is a guy who fell in South Africa 4 times.
4 times?
4 times. And at the end, the lesson he could get out of this is the power of failure to success.
Yes.
Because if he did not fail, he won't be a successful business guy today. So first thing is coaching has a great role to play, and I will come back giving an example on how coaching saved this guy and made him successful. Second thing is you as an entrepreneur, you have to dissociate yourself and the business. When Alon Reyes was asked 5 years after he succeeded, what it is that you did to come out, he said, look, there is something I could not do in the beginning, which was dissociate me as Alon Reyes and my business, because I was so close. I had a retail business, I have invested, and I keep telling myself, I cannot change my mind because I've invested. So you become a prisoner. So retrospectively, what he could have done is dissociate himself and the business. The business failed, and he took a coach to come help me think through differently. And this was the 5th time that he made it. Thanks to this coach.
To the business coach, right?
You got coach.
The third thing that we need to do for our youth is develop a culture of evaluation. In whatever we do, we need to evaluate what we have done, and if it is a failure, so be it. Let's evaluate it, let's extract the lessons that come from, and then let's build on this, not do the same mistake, and move on. So these are more or less what we could advise. And the last thing is sometimes you succeed, you go quickly, and because you have a quick success and you don't manage the growth, then you fail again. So here, what we would advise to the youth, which the trend is going very well, but you still keep monitoring and make sure that you are not victim of your success, and you can come out. So let me stop here.
Sure. It's quite a lot of wise words. Obviously, Ignace, you have supported so many, hundreds of entrepreneurs in Rwanda, and not just entrepreneurs, but corporates, medium, large, and multinationals in acquiring finance in our region. Certainly, you know quite a lot about investment and also seeing people, succeeding and failing. It's quite staggering for me to hear. I'm still at the numbers. I'm still at the sample of 1,000 entrepreneurs, that sample. So out of 1,000 entrepreneurs, 90% will fail, so 900 will fail, and 100 will succeed. But really, when you go deeper, it's only 20 entrepreneurs out of 1,000 that will succeed. So being a life coach, being a business coach, and the leadership coach, I couldn't help but thinking about the emotions that those 900 entrepreneurs will be going through, and how they will, be seen in the society, particularly our community in Rwanda and around the world. So I would like to hear the viewers' thoughts on anything that has been shared earlier on, whether it is from Ambassador Dr. Ron or Mr. Ignace Rusenga. If you have any comments or questions or similar stories that can be addressed by the panel later on, please share your comments. I will be checking YouTube, and we also have a screen for those of you who are joining us from Facebook. So we'll make sure we address your comments, questions before we complete. So now let me turn to my fellow woman entrepreneur, Clarisse. Certainly, Clarisse, you are one of the key women in the ICT that are rising stars or have risen, because your track record is very stellar. So we certainly appreciate who you are as a woman entrepreneur, but also what you represent for women and entrepreneurs in the country. And I know that now more people in Africa are seeking to gain more knowledge from you as to what your journey was like. Could you share a little bit more from your perspective on this topic based on what was shared, or perhaps if you agree or disagree with what was shared? I think it would be a good thing to have some sort of debate around the table. So the floor is yours, Clarisse.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mireille, for having me. Is it okay if I just put my mask on?
You can, yes. Go ahead.
I prefer that. Thank you for having me, and for this amazing roundtable that we're having. I don't think we have enough time to talk about this topic.
True.
It's one that I'm deeply passionate about. It's my day-to-day life. But I think it's also something that's really important for everyone out there, but even more so today as we're dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. And I do agree with a lot of things that this expert panel has already shared. And I'll just add from my own personal experience.
Sure.
I'll say for me, for the last 10 years, ever since I started Hehe, I've been running a 10-year-long experiment. And that's the mindset with which I run the business. And we've had so many failures, if you look at it from the traditional sense of what a failure is.
Right.
But because we had a different mindset where our ethos, our way of thinking was, this is an infinite game that we're playing. It's not just about the next quarter or the annual, how did we perform in terms of our annual targets. We had this infinite mindset where we had this big, hairy, audacious goal that we were trying to achieve, that we know we cannot achieve in one quarter, 1 year, or even one lifetime. I mean, we're talking about things like, how do you end post-harvest loss in agriculture? This is a complex problem. How do you optimize supply chains? How do you enable businesses to predict consumer demands and produce depending on that kind of information? So we're not looking at something that will be measured quarterly only. We do have targets that we could measure quarterly or annually, but we look at it as an infinite game, even a relay where we pass on to the next generation or the next leadership team or whatever it is. And this is something we've done where my role has evolved gradually within the organization from a college student who was writing code themselves to having to lead a small team, lead a bigger team, let go of things I thought I had control over and let the next team take over that. So there's been a lot of growth. It's been a lot of learning. And I would say this mindset has a couple of things that I think I was lucky to have. First of all, I did lots of sports growing up. So just because you lost one volleyball game, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Just go.
It's wonderful.
Get better, and come back for the next game. Yeah. Also know what you can and cannot do. There were teams who were like, yeah, those guys are really good. We're probably not going to win that game given the resources we have. How can we play our own game? Yeah. So those are things that we've constantly thought of. And maybe also the engineering background where it's an experiment. If something blows up, it's okay. Figure out how not to blow up.
It's part of the lab experience.
It's part of your learning experience. And we built that culture within the organization and even went ahead to launch what we call iHack, the Innovation Academy, where we are always learning. And every member of our team has to go through that academy, and every 6 months we'll have an iHack process. So right now, during this COVID season, we are in the testing phase of our iHack curriculum, where we're testing some products we put out there from our customers and trying to see how the customers, what's the feedback like? Yes. Which comes back to something which Inya said about, taking yourself out of don't be the center of the entire, business, or, what you're not the center of it. It's the problem you're trying to solve, it's the customers that you're serving. So this process allows us to check our egos. It's not about us. Just because I like this platform or I think this makes us look good, if the customers don't want it, if it doesn't solve the problem, we are happy to let go of it. And we accept it and we move on. And maybe last but not least, it really does come back to some of the things that were mentioned around coaching, which for me I call your support system. Right. And this is what has enabled us to just keep progressing in spite of the many failures, the unbelievable failures that we've had. We surround ourselves with people who will be honest with us and tell us when we are failing, when we need to pivot, when we need to change, who will mentor us, who will coach us. This has been great. I mean, places like the ICT Chamber, just having a platform like that where you're able to get support and help have really empowered us. And that's the note I'd like to end on. But I do agree with a lot of things. But maybe just one comment from what His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Ron mentioned about, a huge budget that has no specific
unconditional.
The unconditional budget. Yeah. How do you do that when you have limited resources, maybe as a nation? Maybe that's a question to you. I'd like to know how that can be done, because we always seem like we're operating with this finite number of resources, which might not be true, it might be an assumption, but how did Israel get to a point to feel like they can have an unconditional budget?
That's indeed a very good question, which I believe we can address in a moment. I would like to certainly hear a little bit from Clément. And also, just before I address you, allow me to just really appreciate what you said in terms of letting go. And that's a failure that I would call it failure, because that's something that many entrepreneurs have. So when you create something, it's like your baby. You are so emotionally attached to it. So having that leadership quality of delegating is absolutely powerful, and certainly something that helps employees that are not emotionally connected to it make sound business business decision rather than the founder. So thank you for mentioning that. So Clément, clearly in the ICT chamber, you would have seen a number of failure, quote unquote. I think we will need
Starting
to also.
From my own,
it's part of your day
to.
So I think later on I will ask the panel to really describe what is that they understand by failure. Is it just money or is it something else? But for now, let us hear your introductory remarks, and then we'll go around with a few more questions.
Yes. So I was saying, I mean, I started also my career, and I'm still an entrepreneur. I was trying to count the businesses that I ventured in that have failed, and I was not getting all of them, but at least I counted 5 of them. From the time I started my first company in 2005 to today. From those, I started myself or invested in or advised or even worked on. I really found interesting and insightful numbers and discussion from everyone. I wanted to come back to Inyas and the statistics. And when we start to speak about these statistics, we use the word 90% business fail or 90% entrepreneur fail. So I would make a difference between business fail and entrepreneur fail. Business fail it has a definition. It's the business can no longer have enough cash flow to sustain itself.
Right.
An entrepreneur fail to me means another thing, which is maybe, I don't know, maybe they did some fraudulent transaction or,
right.
So to me an entrepreneur has failed by the time, and Clarice mentioned that, by the time they are no longer able to pursue the problem or to continue solving the problem they want to solve. And to me, a business is a channel. It's a tool, setting up a company, creating a company, getting funding for a company, hiring people. It's a vehicle for one to solve the problems they've sought out to solve. By the time as an entrepreneur, and that's something I've come to be very comfortable about, I really very quickly realized that what's important for me is the problem I'm trying to solve. Whether I solve that through a company that I've founded myself, whether I solve that through joining another company or partnering with other people, or even through another channel that's not necessarily a for-profit business, as long as I really am passionate about doing what I'm doing so to contribute to solving a problem that I have clearly identified and formulated, to me, I never fail. What fails is the channels I chose to solve that through. So it's not easy when you are a young entrepreneur, because you really very quickly connect and like identify yourself with the business you are doing, because most of the time you are talking about business and everyone will call you, oh, Clément Irembo or Clarice, hey, you know, you are identified with the business and it's who you are. And that's how it becomes really emotional, the failure and probably the bouncing back. And that would actually be my follow-on question. What is it to bounce back? Is it like bouncing back from the debts that you have accumulated when the businesses you invested in failed, or bouncing back from the emotional difficulties that you went through when what you identify with no longer exists? But for me, through all this failure, really what I came to be very comfortable with is that idea that the most important thing is the problem I'm trying to solve as a person I'm passionate about, and what is the best channel for me to achieve that or to contribute to solving that. Most of the time it has been venturing in something new, advocating for something new and taking the lead to setting the structures that help me do it.
Right.
But at the same time, without necessarily thinking it's the only way to moving some needle.
Wow, that's just powerful. So there's quite a number of things that have been shared. So I would like to make sure that we include also the audience, which is in Rwanda and outside of Rwanda. So on YouTube right now, there's quite a few questions, and I will be able to see the Facebook comments when they come along. So let us address the question and allow me to be the facilitator and allocate the questions to our panelists. I'm cognizant of the fact that Clarisse's question will be addressed by His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Ron. There is a question on YouTube from Tinashe Ngobiro. He's asking, COVID has plunged African economies into recession. What innovative macroeconomic interventions can be considered to revive African economies and sustain livelihoods during and post-COVID? So I think the obvious person to answer this question will be Ignace. So I will allocate that question to Ignace. And also, someone is thanking Kora. Emmeline is thanking Kora for getting such a great experts on the round table. Certainly, as a life coach herself, we have a lot to offer to the 90% who fail. Indeed, we are here to serve the 90% today. So what you are sharing us is certainly, hopefully, bringing that bouncing back emotional part. And Ignace will probably answer the bouncing back financially as well. I think those are the two questions that I will ask. First, let's address Clarisse's question from Israel's point of view, and then Ignace will also touch upon those questions. Ambassador?
Thank you. So, about budget. Budget is a question of policy. It's a question of priority. There is money. Yes, there is money. We saw the budget for the coming 2 years. It's $3.4 billion. You need for that, education, TVET, you know, the new things, the old things. Yes, it's a question of priorities. It's a question of setting priorities by the leadership. And if it is a priority R&D, like we have, then you set the budget for that. If you need 10 million, you will set 10 million, and then you will play with that. And of course the budget here is 60% local and 40% you bring from outside, and you can plan it accordingly also. Now we have a law which also says that every company has to set 5% of their budget to R&D. That is why we have 5% R&D of the budget of the GDP.
Wow.
And that is it's a question of policy. That's it. I mean, I call your leaders to decide. You want to be a place to innovate, and you can because it's clean in many senses. It's safe. It's all the RDB talking points. It is. Then set a goal to do that in the budget. I want to mention that, having said unconditional, of course, you need to have some kind of the government does give you the set of conditions, but in principle, they give you money. If you succeed, they will get the money back. This is part of the condition. If you do an exit, yeah, and startups do an exit of $1.2 billion, and you got 100,000, the government will get half. The government will get $600 million.
Wow.
As an expression, I'm saying it, not exactly. And the money, and I think I told Mireille, the money the government got back was much, much more than it gave unconditionally. And that is the name of the game. It's like a innovation hub, but in a national scale. And that is the experience. If I have the floor,
yes,
or maybe at the end I have to connect the COVID to that, maybe just short summary in the end.
Absolutely, in the final remarks,
yes,
we can do that. Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. Ignace, go ahead.
Yeah, two questions. The one, if you allow me to address the question from Clément. Clément, I'm really happy in your case. You separated early in the process, you and the business. So today the emotional part is less because you can change, you can recreate, you can readjust. So when I was talking about bouncing back, it's about from the moment you fail, the first idea, the first concept, the first service, how many times you try again before succeeding. So in Africa, most of the time, people have not been lucky like Clarisse, like you, figuring this out in the beginning. People try because they go to entrepreneurship as a trial. So if it doesn't work, one try, I did it, I try, it did not work. Let me go back and ask for a job in the government. But where there is this framework, like Israel, Singapore, US, people keep trying. You lose a concept, you ask yourself, what happened? Was it the idea? Was it the fact that I did not plan properly? Was it that I hired the wrong people?
Management.
Was it that I did not have money enough? People put the money first. But in the reality, like you said, it's not the money. It's what the problem I want to solve. So if the idea was good, but you were too much passionate about your idea, to the extent that you did not figure out what the market is saying, you may fail.
Yeah.
So while you establish this, then you are ready to bounce back because you can change the idea, you can change the concept, you can figure out how to ask more money, and we'll come back to this, because money you can figure out many options. So this is what I meant about bouncing back. Now, the question about recession post-COVID, what is going to be done to help this entrepreneur? Indeed, Tina Ngubiro is right. We are in a unique situation. I don't think that over the last 50 years we have had such thing. I think such pandemic came out 80 years before. So we are part of something that is unique. Government, entrepreneur, and all the development partners mechanisms are struggling on how do we come back. So there will be a tripartite contribution, in my view. One is government. On the policy perspective, we'll try to set some policy measure to help on the recovery. In the case of Rwanda, for example, you have Rwanda, which by virtue of stopping a cash flow business, which is depending on daily business.
Yeah.
You don't have liquidity, you stop. You can't pay your salary, you can't pay your OPEX. So the government will have to bail out few companies which are strategic to the country, but the government cannot bail out everybody. If they were to bail out Clarisse and all the young entrepreneurs, we will not make it. So what the government will do is put strategic measures that allow quickly the climate to come back. So one is work with the central bank to make sure that liquidity is back in the system, because for many months, many entrepreneurs will not pay their debt to the bank. So the banking system is kind of drawing the liquidity.
Yeah.
Somebody has to put back the liquidity in the system. Second is give a number of incentives on the taxation or delay the taxation, which the government of Rwanda, for example, is doing very efficiently. And third is putting people to think differently. So if you are an entrepreneur, you cannot work like you were working a few months after. No. things has changed, you need to move on, you need to change, you need to use digitalization. So government is pushing for digitalization because it gives you more opportunities. There will be development partners support. And I think on the bilateral side, the ambassador over the next months will have to work with the government of Israel, being here, to see where are the opportunities to support this entrepreneur. It doesn't mean cash. It means opportunity. For example, if you bring entrepreneur from Israel, and they can partner with Hehe, with you, and this Kora is already a contribution, because then you will have cash flow coming from the north. You will have a number of things done. And the third thing is really what is matter the most is you as an entrepreneur, you as an SME, you as a corporate. You need to be a leader, and leadership means deal with change. And this is really a change where you have to be creative, innovative, and find solutions. And you need to go get the government support, because government will not create everything for you. But if you can figure out where you need government, this will be a way to come out.
Yeah, wow. I think I must agree with Clarisse when she said that we don't have enough time to, to share all that we can share on this topic, which is quite vast. I'm seeing a number of comments and questions, and I'm cognizant of the fact that it is 2:56 and we have only 4 minutes remaining. So we can continue to talk about the practical, rational things to do from a budgeting point of view. But really the heart of this message and the heart of this Leaders Roundtable, from my perspective as a coach, is on the emotional intelligence side of things, how to deal with emotions so that you can bounce back emotionally. Yes, financially, of course, it goes without saying. There is a question that I guess Ignace will touch upon in closing, but I would like to go around as you share your closing remarks. I would like to ask you to really empower people based on your own quote-unquote failures in the past, and share with others what you believe they need to do in order for them to become even more motivated to learn from past failures, or even considering the current situation. In coaching, we call such a thing a safe space. What can we do for people to feel safe in making mistakes, or even sharing their own limitations? So I'm going to go around the other way around so I can close by asking you, Clément, to share some of your key messages around emotional intelligence, how you can bounce back emotionally. And if you have something very brief to share in less than a minute, that would be great. Thanks.
I think I touched on it, but it's the ability to constantly disconnect the channel you are using to deliver on what you want to solve as a problem, and yourself and yourself and your passion to solving that problem. But more importantly, and His Excellency Dr. Ron mentioned it, is not looking at the logistical actions to get that done, but more of what is my goal, how will I be measuring that I'm getting there, and then find the means to get there as you go. Right. But constantly tracking that you are, and if we are in innovation space, you are reaching your goal. And one of the things when it comes to execution that I put in place in all organizations I work within is a methodology called the objectives and key results that really narrows down what you are seeking out to do. Right. And what are the 3 measures. At Irembo, it was very simple for us. It was making government service as easy as possible. How we measured that is counting how many trips every citizen makes to get a government service and how much paper they need to produce to do so. Then from there, start reducing that. If we spent a whole year without reducing a trip or a paper, then we didn't do anything. So, yeah.
Wow. Thank you very much for sharing. Clarice.
Ditto to everything he said. But also just to what I had spoken about earlier, it's really about redefining what you call failure. You know, being agile is one way you could define it as. Pivoting is not failure. Like you said, you can just change the channels, change the product, but you're focusing on the problem that you're trying to solve. That's the piece of advice I would give in regards to failure. Just redefine that. Remove the stigma around changing, pivoting, being agile.
Yeah.
You know, remove all that stigma. But from an EQ, an emotional intelligence point of view, I would say, you know, be careful who you surround yourself with. You
Very
protect
good.
that space.
Awesome.
You know, who is speaking to you? What's
Yes.
getting into your mind? You know, people will say a lot of things about our success and all that, but I know the reality. I know what our bank account looks like. I know what profit we've made. I know what we're struggling with. All these realities, and I try not to let other things get into my mind. So who do you surround yourself with? What support system do you have around you? Be very cautious about that, because it can make or break you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Yes, Ambassador.
Thank you. Yeah, be cautious, but to listen to the rest of the people. It's important to listen and to understand, and maybe then you make your decisions. For me, proportions in life is very important. Everything has to be taken in proportion, and this helps me a lot.
Yeah.
Failures, whatever I do, whatever happens around me, take it in proportion. It's not the end of the world, nothing.
Right.
Which brings me to the COVID, and the whole world failed.
Yeah.
Many countries, many businesses, most of the businesses, even here in Rwanda, you're lucky to have, in this case, 80% farmers, because they continue the work and that's it. But the world, there's so many businesses failed, and they didn't plan it. I mean, they didn't plan it. So they failed, and now it's the time to change the mindset. Life is short and uncertain. That's what we learned.
Yeah.
So now is the time to set goals and think different. And I want to bring my own announcement here that
Yes.
there is a program of the Israeli Innovation Authority which is called the Pilot Program. And this is a program that offers foreign entities. Because you asked for that, that's why I'm saying that. You asked for me to bring something new. So the pilot program of the Israeli Innovation Authority offers foreign entities the opportunity to partner with Israeli companies who wish to pilot, validate, scale up, and adapt their new innovative technologies and solutions to the entity's specific needs. So this program is exactly what we can offer. It's a new program of innovation, and they have a lot of budget. So and I can share with you, of course, the way how to budget it. In principle, it's matching. So the Israeli, and unless you don't have all the money to bring, so your side will also get the 50% somehow from the Israeli side. But in principle, the Israeli side will give the 50%, and your side will be the 50%. And that is the idea. And that is one of the concepts that I'm going to bring here to this floor and create the Innovation Hub to bring Israeli companies or startups to which gets their support already from home. They will work here a few weeks, a few days, or a few months with partners from here or whatever private sector, and I mean